Good morning and welcome to Rediscovering the Federation. I am your host, Josh Pritchett, and I am joined today by my co-host, Chris Pabon. He is, can you hear us, Chris? Okay. Sorry, Chris is having some technical difficulties here. We can't hear him right now. Hang on just one second. We'll see if we can resolve that. Chris? Okay. Well, wait, I thought we heard something there for a second. Just let people know, Chris still can't hear you. Oh, wait, had it there for a second. Just to let people know, Chris is actually in Richmond today. Chris, can you disconnect the headphones?
The headphones. I can hear you. I'll try to reboot again.
Okay. Well, just to let everybody know, Chris is today in GalaxyCon at Richmond, Virginia. If anybody's in the Richmond area today, come on down and check it out. It's a really fun convention. I was there myself yesterday. I had a great time. William Shatner, who obviously doesn't need any introduction around here, he was there. Also, Evangeline Lilly from Lost, The Hobbit, and the MCU. She plays Wasp there, and is also a renowned children's book author is there. And the great Giancarlo Espinosa of Breaking Bad and The Mandalorian, and also The Boys, is there also this weekend, along with other cast members from The Boys and various other shows. And we have Chris again. Chris!
I'm coming to you live from Richmond Comic Con. A little view of beautiful Richmond Convention Center.
Yes.
And I am happy to be with you. It might be a little intermittent, but I am here to discuss with all of you my thoughts about the final episode of this season of Discovery. So let's fly.
Let's fly indeed. Okay, Chris, why don't you start with telling us some of what your thoughts of your thoughts on the beginning of the episode.
In typical Star Trek style, the die has been cast and the dangers are imminent. Tarka and Book have managed to break through the sphere, and we are on the clock for Earth's and Navarre's imminent destruction with no possible way out of the sphere. And so, with no way to be able to get out yet, an attempt is made, which I thought was rather brilliant, to communicate via Vulcan mind melt. And so, President Chirina attempts to communicate, is almost instantaneously overwhelmed, but manages to convey the thought that they no longer trust them because of the actions of Book and Tarka. And so, Stamets, who is almost as brilliant as Tarka, devises a way for them to be able to break free of the sphere, but it's sort of a Voyager scenario in which if they burn out the spore drive, it'll generate enough energy that it'll break free from the sphere, but then they will have no way to get home for several decades at high warp. So we have a Voyager scenario, but with the lives of everyone on Earth and Navarre on the line, they decide to do this. And so the spore drive is fired up, even though they can't go anywhere, and they burn it out, but they manage to break free of the sphere. And then from there, it's on the way to desperately try to catch up with Book and figure out how they would stop them, since they no longer have weapons or tractor beams. Basically, the only thing they have is propulsion.
Right. And meanwhile, on Book's ship, Commander Reno and Book devise a way to get out of the improvised brig that Tarkin has stuck them in, while he is trying to capture the power source of the DMA. And meanwhile, the Tensi are trying to stop them. Meanwhile, in Earth's solar system, Starfleet has rallied and are flying in all available ships to evacuate Earth and Titan and Navarre as quickly as possible. It is not looking good because as the DMA comes, it is essentially pushing debris out ahead of it, much like a large ship would be pushing the ocean ahead of it. So it is wreaking havoc. It is tearing through Earth's protective shielding. Meanwhile, Tilly and her cadets are on board the Admiral's flagship as they're trying to beam out as many people as possible and also protect Earth from being destroyed by these encroaching asteroids. Meanwhile, Jet Reno manages to escape Tarka's ship Book's ship, while Book attempts to stop the ship and stop Tarkin, and makes a plea to Michael that Book, is trying to help. He's trying to do the right thing, and to give him some credit for that. Chris?
Thanks to some clever engineering by Reno, as you said, they managed to use a holograph emitter to break through the force field and knock out Tarka. And that was probably the best moment of the entire season, to see Tarka getting clocked by Book. And so he sends Reno to Discovery with the message of I love you, Michael, and stop us whichever way you can. And so this was the moment that I thought we were about to go from a good episode to truly memorable, excellent episode, when they realized the only way to take out Book's ship is to ram it with a shuttle. And so when they realized that the interference from the sphere will not allow them to do automatic pilot, someone has to man the shuttle. And we truly have a moment where you have a suicide mission. And in remembering when the president of the Federation first talks to Michael Burnham and says, you can't make the hard call of sending someone to die, she looks at her husband and says, we need a really good pilot. And at that moment, she steps up and says, I'm ready, Captain. And that was such a pivotal moment I thought we had. Oh my God, we're going to finally have this moment that someone knows they're not going to come back. And so it looks like everything is doomed for Detmer. But then the general from Earth, who has been summoned and comes up with the idea of a shuttle to ram the ship, says, no, I'm an experienced combat pilot. I will do it. And then she's reminded, because of the interference, we may not be able to beam you out in time. And she's like, no, this is sort of like my penance. I'm going to do this. And so she goes to the shuttle, and it's off she goes to ram the ship. Meanwhile, Book and Tarka are having one last conversation, in which Tarka is saying that, he, again, never wanted this for Book, and they see the oncoming shuttle, and they realize they're going to ram them, but Tarka, in an attempt at a change of heart, says, okay, you know what? The explosion may generate enough power to beam me to where my friend is, but I have just enough side power to beam you out just as this happens. And so we have the big moment. The shuttle rams them. You see Book being beamed out straight to the bridge of the Discovery. And, Michael's full of hope. And then you have what I thought was the other great seminal moment of the episode, where he fizzles out. And you see this great look of horror and despair in Michael Burnham, and you realize, yes, this is the death that we probably needed to wrap everything up. It's the demise of Book. And so take it from there, Josh.
So basically, Tarka is successful. He manages to beam Book out. Discovery has to use its own transporters to lock onto him to pull him all the way through. Meanwhile, back in Earth's solar system, the Starfleet has done everything it can to evacuate Earth, as many people as they could get. They think they were only able to get 450,000 people off Earth, another 450,000 off of Navarre. The Admiral orders the crew to abandon ship, beam over to the Mitchell, and escape with all the refugees. Tilly decides that she's going to stay with the Admiral and help him hold the line as long as possible. And they share kind of a heartfelt moment in which Tilly says that despite all her problems with her mother, she, realized that her mother loved her and that she's had and this is it. She's had an incredible life. And then suddenly the back at the DMA, Michael and the gang have reopened negotiations with the 10C and explained to them, with the help of Book, what is going on, what's happening, what the DMA is doing to their worlds. And the 10C are like, oh, sorry, we didn't realize your worlds were habited. We'll only send the DMA to places that are not habitable. And Book says that's not good enough because you live this huge toxic mess wherever the DMA goes, and we can't get around that. So you have to disable that and let us help you. So the 10C agree. Book is able to use his empathic skills that he typically uses with aliens, and he was able to use on his own homeworld, and they understand and they realize what's going on. So the DMA is deactivated. Earth and Navarre are saved, although Titan has apparently suffered a lot of damage. And then Discovery is sent through the DMA's wormhole to Earth, where it meets up with Starfleet. And the president of Earth, of United Earth, has requested to come aboard and greet the Federation president and the crew of Discovery. And we get a real surprise as to who is playing the Federation president. Chris? Okay, so I think we lost you. Go ahead.
Federation comes on board, and it is revealed to be special guest star Stacey Abrams. And they talk about whether they will enter into negotiations, and she says, no need, like, we're in. And so then she has a moment aside with Burnham, looking at the Earth and talking about how all of this may not have been possible without their help and what lies forward for all of them. And Burnham makes a very Star Trek reference about how there are so many new worlds out there and so many new people that need to be brought into the Federation. And he kind of hints at we're back into the business of exploring with the Federation. And that was a wrap.
Yeah. So moving on now, let's talk a little bit about some of the things we liked and did not like as much about this week's episode. Overall, I think I liked the scene where Book used his empathic abilities to communicate with the 10C. I kind of thought that was going to happen, but I thought it was a good way he did it because, he could communicate with them and, it showed them what was going on in a way that no one else could. Even Tarina couldn't with her Vulcan mind meld skills. I think that was good. Obviously, we saw a lot more of Vulcan President Tarina's relationship with Captain Saru evolving, and there's a moment at the end where we see them looking over Saru's garden that he keeps in his quarters, and I think that's really kind of interesting. I think they're becoming the new power couple of Discovery. Once again, I really, I think Detmer is such a great character. The fact that she was ready to sacrifice herself. We can get into the not so cool about this, but I'm glad that she didn't have to sacrifice herself because I think she's a terrific character, and I really would miss having her on the show. So I'm glad we didn't have that. We don't know exactly what happened to Tarkin. Did he make it to the other side? Is he going to come back? I don't know. But I think overall, it was a good episode. And personally, I was very happy that, Stacey Abrams, who is known as, who's, an activist and a huge Star Trek fan. She said in many interviews over the last few years how big of a fan of Star Trek she is. And I'm glad she had the opportunity to be on the show and have a scene with Sonequa Green Martin. And, it was well done. So, Chris?
Finale, and I'll tell you why. Because we were on the cusp of greatness with a truly significant death, which would have been first Detmer being sent to man the shuttle to die. And then when that scene that was going to happen, then we were robbed of the death of Book, which would have been a good way to wrap up his storyline and sort of atone for everything that he did throughout the season with Tarka. Instead, we got multiple happy endings that reminded me of Return of the King. And so I'm not sure if Peter Jackson somehow stepped in to direct this episode. I thought we were robbed. We needed at least one significant death, something of value to remind us, like, holy cow, the stakes really are high here. I mean, the stakes are not high when everyone gets their happy ending. Even Tarka, we're left open-ended to think, like, yeah, maybe he was successful in using the energy of the explosion to beam over to the universe where his friend is. I mean, we were teased. We were on the cusp of greatness, of significant deaths. Whether it was Detmer, whether it was Book, whether it was Tilly and the Admiral, and in the end, like, everyone is saved. So I recognize there might be people who like all these happy endings. I did not. I think we needed at least one significant death. We needed some emotional gravitas to wrap up this season. And in addition to this, I will say that the punishment for Book seems extremely light. I mean, like, he detonated a weapon that was forbidden. He put 2 planets at risk. He interrupted negotiations with another alien race. And so what is his punishment? He gets to go to serve as some type of counselor for people who need relocation. I mean, no. I mean, how is it that Cassidy Yates and Deep Space Nine didn't get this deal? He needed to do some time at a penal colony, rehabilitation colony, call it what you want. But he needed a much more severe punishment than this, that was even a slap on the wrist. And even Burnham refers to this when he tells the president, I'm not asking for any, special recognition here regarding Book. Yeah, maybe this leaves a way for him to come back next season, but I thought the punishment for him was way too light, and I thought we were teased and robbed of something that we needed to provide an emotional catharsis for the episode, and to truly take this Star Trek episode finale and elevate it to the realm of The Expanse, Battlestar Galactica, where people actually die. When you know that even in this worst case scenario, no one's going to die, the stakes are never really that high.
Well, I'll just say this. If you go back and, really think about it, technically it was not Book who launched the weapon. It was Tarkin, because Book had basically decided, okay, I'm going to hold off on launching this weapon because, I'm going to let, the Discovery, I'm going to let Michael and the president negotiate and do it. And it was Tarkin, and, at one point, he did manage to get word to her that, yes, this was Tarkin's, who did this, not me. But yeah, it did seem like it was a little bit of a light punishment compared to other, other things. I'm not saying that he should have been spending the rest of his life in a penal colony or something. I mean, I kind of thought they were going to send him off and make him an ambassador to the 10C because of his empathic abilities, that he would have an easier time communicating to them with emotion and other things that would help.
Not an ambassadorship.
I'm sorry, say that again, Chris?
He committed multiple crimes against the Federation.
Well, yeah, but, I kind of think that, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was obviously committing espionage with stealing the prototype spore drive and installing it on his ship, I think was the big thing. But, I mean, I don't really know how the justice system might actually work in the future federation. Do they just, obviously we know that they've had prisons, stockades, that sort of thing from episodes like the episode of Ensign Ro back in Star Trek: The Next Generation, where Ro-Laram was introduced. But I think there's also more of an emphasis on rehabilitation and less on punishment. So, that could be what they're saying is, okay, we don't exactly just throw people in prison for the rest of their lives unless they committed something really heinous like murder or genocide. And I think that there was definitely an attitude of like, well, okay, you did these terrible things, but you were under duress. You were under, you had all these, you had lost your whole home world. You were still under, you were seeking therapy and everything. And you were manipulated by Tarkin. So we're going to make you do this community service. I mean, that might've been a little bit light. I mean, but I think honestly, from my perspective, Chris, being in the 21st century, I do feel like there's a lot of people who get prison when they ought to just get community service or mental health treatment instead of prison. But that's just, I'm not trying to push my views on anybody here. I'm just saying what I'm thinking, because Star Trek, the Federation, is supposed to be as close to a utopian society as it can be. And I'm not defending anything, but I'm just saying, it's a thought. So, Chris, can you still hear me okay? Okay. Can you respond to that?
I agree on this one, because I think genocide, single-handedly crippling the ability of the Federation to use prodrive technology by taking that prototype, and so many others, just because he was Tarka's partner. I think that I like what you said. Community service is what he got, and community service is way too light.
Yeah.
Which I thought, again, not to harp on this too much, that it would have given us the emotional catharsis we needed. If he had died, I think that would have been the proper resolution for a storyline. That, okay, in the end, he sort of amended for his what he did against the Federation that way. So we'll just have to agree to disagree on this one.
Okay, well, fair enough. So, okay. So moving on about predictions of what we think we might see in season 5 of Discovery. Now, here's the thing. I would really like to point out, when a Star Trek show hits the 5th season, I think there's a lot of exciting transitions, a lot of new character introductions, a lot of new things that launch into other things. Key example, I mentioned Ensign Ro earlier. We had her character show up, and that began to fill out more. We learned about the Bajorans. It filled out more about the Cardassians, who we'd seen briefly in season 4. We got to know more about both of those, and of course, that obviously launched over into Deep Space Nine, which was exciting. And a little bit of Voyager, because as you recall, Rose's story arc ends with her running off to join the Maquis. So we had that, and of course, we obviously had the episode Darmok, which has, of course, been one of the most talked about episodes in Star Trek history. Another great episode, The Inner Light. Things like Worf's son Alexander becoming a recurring character on the show. A ton of things happened in the 5th season of Next Generation, and a ton of things happened in Deep Space Nine, like the Dominion War began. Voyager, I think that was, was a huge number of really awesome episodes, like The Year from Hell, a number of things about Seven, B'Elanna, just a ton of things. So I think the bar is pretty high for Discovery at this point going into season 5. I mean, what are you going to do? We obviously have a lot of, hints about things. The Klingons are still out there. We don't know what happened to them. Michael mentioned the Andorians possibly rejoining the Federation. I think that's very likely, but, is that going to be just something very instantaneous, like we saw with Nivar? Excuse me, I'm sorry, and Earth. Are we going to, maybe see the Borg return? We did see the Dominion, sort of. I have a real question here. We had that scene with the Changeling in the casino, who was, basically, running scams trying to raise money. What happened to the Dominion? It owned almost a whole quadrant of the galaxy at one point. Now you've got changelings pulling side scams in casinos. What's going on, guys? There's a ton of things there that I would like to see answered. So, Chris, what do you got for me? Oh, Chris may have bumped into something there. I don't know. It looks like the robe from Manos Hands of Fate there, but so yeah, that's kind of, well, those are some of my predictions. Obviously, it looks like Book will be back. I'm going to also run out a few ideas. Maybe Adira may break up with Gray and might start dating Detmer more. I would love it if season 5 opened with our crew going on their holidays around Earth. Obviously,
Sorry, I'm back now.
Okay, here we go. We got Chris. Chris, what are your predictions for season 5?
I heard what you said about what happened to the Dominion, and I think that what we're going to learn is that I don't think we're going to focus on the Dominion. I think there's too many other races out there within our own quadrant that begs the question, what happened? And as I've said all along, the Klingons, like, what the heck happened to the Klingons? What the heck happened to Bajor? I think we're going to see a lot more exploring. But I think it's going to be exploring of people within our quadrant. And this is why I think so, because they have 13 episodes per season. And, they need proper time for all of the different races. And there's just not enough time to go with all the races. And as much as I want to return to Deep Space Nine, I don't think we're going to get it because we haven't gotten up until now. I don't think it's going to happen. So I think for whatever reason, everything associated with the Deep Space Nine storyline, we may get hints here and there about a mention of Bajor. We may see some Ferengi, but I don't think we're going to get anything related to Deep Space Nine next year, or anything related, any of the races, Cardassians or Bajorans, related to that storyline. I would like it, but I don't think we're going to get it. What I think we are going to get is I think we're going to get a lot more of the power couple of Saru and President Serena, which is a storyline I really like to see develop. And assuming that Book is going to be off and his doing whatever community service, I think that the new power couple we're going to see is Saru and President Serena, and I'm not sure we're going to see also next season. I think we're going to see a breakup of Gray and Adira, because Gray has to be studying to be a guardian of the wills, and so that means he can't be in the ship with Adira. So I think that couple, we're going to see a breakup. So I just back to you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, I hate to see Gray go because he's such a terrific actor. And if this is, and I would like to see Gray come back occasionally in either Star Trek, maybe even Star Trek, there's talk about a spinoff of Star Trek Academy, Starfleet Academy. So that's a possibility. But if Gray is going to be, the actor playing Gray is going to have to leave the show, I do wish him the best and hope to see him in more projects as time goes on. I think, I do think that, I'm a huge bias, as everybody knows. I'm a huge DS9 guy, and would love to know more about the Dominion. Hey, and I talked with a friend about this, about the possibility of Odo coming back, and I have mixed feelings on that idea because I don't really want anybody other than Rene Auberjonois to play that character, even though as a changeling, Odo could appear as anyone. We don't know the lifespan of changes, but yeah, you're right. I think the Klingons have a much bigger footprint in Star Trek, and I have kind of, I had this idea, and it kind of ties back to an idea that Michael Dorn had talked about in an interview about doing a Klingon story that was like a Klingon Game of Thrones, where he would be playing Worf, and where he would be trying to get to save the Klingons from themselves, from their own excesses, and transition them away from being an empire. And we don't know what happened. I think, given what we are seeing now, and given that Star Trek has a history of talking about current events in a science fiction metaphor, maybe this would be a great time to bring in Michael Dorn as a descendant of Worf's, and him, what he's trying to do to save the Klingon people, if not necessarily the Empire. That would be a great way. Something I'm going to talk about later in our new show, Engaging with Picard, where I'm going to talk about possibilities of bringing Michael Dorn onto that show. What if they decide, hey, we'd like to use your idea as part of Discovery, and we'd like you to be Worf, and we'd like you to be, or a future Worf, and be part of the franchise again, and that's a possibility. But I'm just spitballing ideas out here. I have absolutely, I do not have Alex Kurtzman's number. I keep trying. It just never shows up on my phone for some reason. I don't know. I mean, I'm pitching some great ideas here, Alex. Call me.
And I think we are going to see Federation headquarters return to Earth. I mean, the darn ship is orbiting Earth anyway. They might as well land. And then two is, I think we will see at least one episode in which they're going to try to attempt to replicate the spore drive that was destroyed on Book's ship. So I think we will see Voyager trying to use it. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I think we will see an attempt at using the new spore drive and see if they can successfully recreate it without Tarka.
Well, I think you've got Stamets, and I think Stamets knows more about the spore drive, and it's going to depend on how he's feeling when he comes back from vacationing with Dr. Colbert, and I think he's going to be hopefully he'll be in a good mindset that he will be able to rebuild the mycelial network and everything when he gets there. But hey, there's another thought. What if they rebuild it, but it doesn't completely work, and we've kind of got a quantum leap type scenario where Discovery is going through. Well, I don't know if I like this idea. This idea of them going through different times, different universes, and things. Of course, they go to different universes. Hey, there's nothing says that they can't have Zach Quinto and Chris Pine show up in an episode. That would be kind of cool. What do you think?
Proponent of keeping the universes separated for right now, and see which ones can rise or shine on their own.
Yeah, I too would like to kind of keep the Star Trek multiverse separated. I mean, I think with other franchises that are playing with their multiverses, Star Trek's already been doing that, so maybe it's time to boldly go where other franchises haven't gone before and find something else that they can do. I think there's a lot of possibilities. I think the thing with Discovery, as opposed to the direction Strange New Worlds is planning to go in, and also Lower Decks already has been going in, is it's not as episodic. It always has one big overarching storyline for the whole season that everything sort of ties back to. I almost would rather Discovery, became more like that sometimes, is less about the big overarching story arc and more about just episode to episode every week and see what happens. But I'm not sure they want to do that. Again, Kurtzman, call me. It's a thought. So
Something I would like to see, that the only one that's given us this has been the original series and Enterprises. Next season, I would like to see a Gorn.
Yeah, I also would love to see a Gorn. I mean, I've been saying a lot recently about how because the Gorn costume cost them so much money to make in the original series, the fact they never used it again was a huge waste of money. But they don't have that problem now. It's less expensive, easier to make, and you can make better ones with the technology and the artistic talents that could make it happen. And I mean, if you have a Gorn who's a reptilian species, and you've got Linus who's a Saurian, which is also a reptilian species, that could be kind of interesting, to see what happens there. I'd be kind of curious. So might give Linus an opportunity to shine.
Something you mentioned for Stamets, and let me tell you, big winner of this season, Stamets, job security. No more book means no other person to run the spore drive. The new spore drive being destroyed on the ship, Stamets can do whatever the hell he wants next season. Like, yeah, I didn't show up for my to be on the bridge. Sorry, only guy who can do the spore drive. Yeah, I didn't get my personnel reviews in time. Sorry, only guy who can do the spore drive. Big winner of this season, Stamets, job security.
Yeah. Yeah, I say that about my job too sometimes. So I think, he's the man with a lot of job security. He's kind of sitting in the catbird seat right there now. So I think he's going to be fine. I hope there will be more opportunities for the other supporting cast members to evolve. So as we wrap up, I think we wrap up season 4 of Discovery. I think there was a lot of good things there, a lot of good things to build on for future seasons. Some things I think they still need to work on. But, overall, I think it has become a much better show than, what I think a lot of people thought it was going to be 4 years ago when it was first announced. Well, 4 or 5 years ago when it was first announced on, CBS. But I think, it's getting there. It really is. And I think the cast and crew have a lot of enthusiasm. They love what they're doing. And they have their characters have a certain charisma. And it is somewhat of a different Star Trek, but it is also still Star Trek. So, I'm looking forward to the next season. So whatever they decide to do. So, Chris?
I'm a 9.5, and I was going to give it a 9.5, but I didn't get the death that I wanted, so it loses a point for me. So I'm giving it 8.5 over 10 for the season.
And on that note, yes, Chris's bloodlust is sated. Okay, so
in the midst of battle, it's like Kayla's level.
Whatever my son at.
Here, Chris. The man has the heart of a warrior. So I'm going to let Chris get back to enjoying GalaxyCon in Richmond. Goodness gracious, I think I don't know. We've got some sort of
a huge shout out to Josh, who has been a great co-host. A huge shout out to our producer Brandon, who makes things work even when I'm here in the midst of a con and I'm using my phone and I'm in a line. The show is great because of the people behind it. Producer Brandon, co-host Josh. Very happy to be here. Taking a break, but you can still listen to Josh talking about Picard, and I'll see all of you guys back for Strange New Worlds. Peace and long life.
Peace and long line, Chris. And just to give everybody a heads up, my book, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is still available on Amazon and Kindle. You can find me at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook if you'd like to send me your thoughts there. And also, as Chris mentioned, I will be back later this morning with another new show to the Movers and Shakers Unlimited universe. This one will be called Engaging with Picard, and I will be having a series of rotating guest co-hosts. Today, I will be doing it with Ulysses Campbell of Fantastic Forum. So you're going to want to check back in with us in just a little while for that. In the meantime, Kapla,